I have been putting off this video for so long, and it's not like, it's funny because for the past like 2 weeks, almost every day I think I'm going to film my birth story video today, and then suddenly it's like 10 o'clock or it's like 9 and I'm like, oh, I'm really tired, I'll do it tomorrow. And it's like every day I'm like, I'm gonna film it tonight, I'm gonna film it tonight, and then I don't. So we're doing it today and it's going up today. This is the last thing I do. Alright, so my birth story is coming with a warning or just an asterisk because I was induced. I was past my 40 weeks, so it was full term. I wasn't having my baby early. It wasn't planned to be induced until my 40-week update, actually. And I know that there are people that kind of don't agree with that, and I know complications can come from it and all that jazz, but that's just what happened, so here we go. So I was really having a tough time at the end of my pregnancy, mentally and physically. I just felt awful, and I was really not about, and it was just completely 100% done. And I remember waking up, I had been crying a lot. I had been just really, really overwhelmed and just was really ready to not be pregnant anymore. And remember I woke up on Violet's due date, the 27th, and it felt like, I kept describing it as Molly Ringwald in 16 Candles, when she's like, she wakes up and it's her birthday and everyone forgets. So I felt like it's a special day, it's supposed to happen, but the party is not starting. And I was so upset, and I cried all that morning. I remember Paul just had to deal with me just bawling because, you know, there was zero signs that that baby was coming. And I had my 40-week appointment that day. So I went in and my doctor asked how I was feeling, all that. And I love my doctor, she's amazing. And, you know, I said, I am so tired of being pregnant. I feel awful. I mentally don't know how much longer I could do this. And so she measured and she's like, I'm pretty sure your baby's fairly large. There's not much room left, and there's not any, like, it's not fat or anything. It's all baby. And so she checked me. I was 1.5 centimeters dilated. And she left the room. She said, I'm going to go check the chart. I don't remember what the chart's called, but it's the chart that'll check to see if you can be safely induced. And so she came back and she goes, okay, 3:30 tomorrow morning, you go to the hospital and we will get you started. And both me and Paul were like, what? Like, oh shit, it's happening. So we went home, got everything ready, told everybody, you know, that it was happening tomorrow. And I remember getting texts from my sister and my brother about how proud they were and how excited and all these things, which was really, really nice to see. And I got zero sleep. I remember I laid down at like 9 o'clock thinking, oh, I better get some sleep. I'm not getting it tomorrow. No, I laid there and thought and laid there and thought more and all that stuff. So I think Paul and I got maybe an hour of sleep, and we headed to the hospital. They pushed us back because for inductions, the way it works is if there are people that come in that are actually in labor, they take them and then they will push back inductions. So I got pushed back until 4:30. So we drive over there. I think my last meal was McDonald's because they had breakfast. So I think it was a Egg McMuffin was my last meal. So we get to the hospital and they put, about 6 o'clock I think is when we got in and got into a room, and the nurse came in, checked me, and they applied the cervical gel. And what this does is it helps to soften your cervix. Oh yeah, at my appointment I was 1.5 centimeters dilated, and then I was 50% effaced, I believe. So she applies the cervical gel, which they apply on your cervix. It's this blue gel, so every time you pee it's like blue, and it's not fun, but it helps to soften your cervix. So they apply that and they leave that on for 4 hours before they start the Pitocin. So they did the cervical gel, they put in the IV, and we were just both hanging out. Paul slept a little bit, I think I did not, and my mom, I was texting her and I was like, you could just come whenever, you know, and she was planning to like leave and come back a couple of times because she used to work at the hospital that I had Violet at, and so she knows like everybody. So she shows up at 8 o'clock in the morning and she's like ready to go. So I went on a walk with her, and then at about 10:30 in the morning, I started the Pitocin, and the Pitocin is what starts contractions. So they hooked me up to the monitors that keep track of the contractions, and then the one that keeps track of Violet's heartbeat, and kind of was just like a waiting game. So after maybe 2 hours or so is when I started to feel, you know, contractions. I started to feel really crampy, and that's when I got my epidural. And so I got my epidural, and that did not hurt that much. It hurt a little bit. It definitely was like a pretty strong stinging feel, but the thing with it is you can't move, so you have to be completely still. So I'm not sure how people do it when they're like in hardcore like contraction mode, because if you move, you could like, it won't work. So they put the needle in your back, and then you have to like tell them when it's like right in the center. So we did that. They said it worked beautifully, but once you get your epidural, you can't move. So that's when they start doing a catheter. I think the catheter was the worst part of the entire experience. So yeah, that sucked. And what they did at this hospital was not one that stays in. They did give me one that stayed in because I had such a hard time with the ones that come in and out. So what they would do is just every couple of hours they would put it in, drain it, and then take it out. But they decided that since I was having such a hard time with it, they'd put one in and leave it. But that was so much worse. But anyways, so got the epidural, and then they give you this big, they gave me this huge, it reminded me of an exercise ball, but like it's shaped like Mr. Peanut. Like it was huge, and it had like a dip, and you'd put your legs between it, and then they'd switch sides, and that helps to kind of get you opened up, so to speak. So they were upping the Pitocin every 20 minutes or so, and once they, I think my doctor came in around 3 o'clock, and she broke my water, and before that they had been checking me, and I was still at 1.5 centimeters, which, you know, you have to get to a 10. So after being on Pitocin for 5-ish hours, I was still at 1.5. So they were getting worried that I was going to need to have a C-section, and I really did not want to have a C-section at all. So around 3 o'clock is when my doctor came in, and she broke my water, and that was the weirdest feeling ever. It literally was like Niagara Falls, just this huge whoosh. It was so much liquid. And once she did that, that got things going. So around an hour after that, I think I had to get, my epidural was wearing off. Something wasn't right with it, and so it was wearing off, and I was starting to feel a little bit of pain. And so they got it to work. I don't know if it was not working, but something happened. So they ended up giving me another type of anesthesia, another type of numbing, I don't know what it was. And it made my legs feel like I had just gone in like a hot tub. But it took away not all feeling, but a lot more. And they checked me, and I think about 4 o'clock I was 5 centimeters dilated, and then around, when did we start pushing? I think we started pushing around 6. So I was having a tough time between about 4 and 6, or probably a little bit earlier than that. Probably about 4 o'clock when I was really having a tough time. I was crying. I was just really uncomfortable and really wanted to get things going, but I wasn't progressing fast enough. And about then is when my friend Kristen showed up, and it was like the clouds, like there was sunlight. And then I was joking with her. I was having, you know, making light of the situation, and she ended up staying for the birth, which I don't think I wasn't planning. I mean, she's my best friend, so it was really good to have her there, and I don't think I could have done it without her. But it just kind of happened. So Paul, my mom, and Kristen were there, which was good because they had to help me like hold my legs back. Anyway, so I think 6 o'clock, 6:30 maybe, we started pushing. And I remember at the beginning of it, it didn't hurt. You know, it just felt like I was just pushing, but it didn't hurt at all. So I was joking around, and I was saying, you know, that how it didn't hurt and how I couldn't feel it, and all this stuff. And about an hour, maybe 45 minutes into it, I was eating my words. I can tell you that much. They call it the ring of fire, and they are not lying because, oh my gosh, it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable is an understatement. Probably about 45 minutes in is when, yeah, I started to get really upset. I was using the oxygen mask, and I was getting tired, so I was having a really hard time continuing to push through the 10 seconds of each time, because they have you push for 10 seconds, breathe, push for 10 seconds, and then breathe, push for 10 seconds. So they do it while you're having a contraction, because then your body's helping you push too. And so there was a little while there where I got really tough. So once my doctor came in, you know, she was already crowning, and I was like, I remember getting mad because she came in and they were setting up all the things, putting on her gloves and her gown thingy, and I remember just being like, hurry the fuck up. Like, I was so upset and just like, you know, and I remember she came up to me and she like leaned over the hospital bed and she said, you need to calm down. And it was like zen. It was immediate like focus, because I was losing it. I was having a really tough time, and she did that, and it was like, boom, we need to get this done. So they got the stirrups up and I started to push, and it was really hurting at that point. It was very, like, the burning was really, really strong, and it was good too, because my nurse, I knew who my nurse was. I used to work with her, and so she was very, like, great coach. She was very good, push, you know. And then I remember I had to get an episiotomy, you know, getting to the end of this, and I remember the last push, and I remember them saying, you know, you could do this, you just gotta really push, this could be the last push. And right before that, she snips, and I didn't know she snipped. I didn't know that she did the episiotomy until afterwards, but I mean, right after she did that, I felt just this big pain, and then it was done. And it was like I knew that Violet was born. And so they put her on my chest, and she didn't cry right away because, you know, she was still connected to the umbilical cord, so she was still connected to the placenta, so she didn't need to. And I got scared for a second, and they were like, no, it's normal. And then, like, probably 5 seconds later, you know, you guys saw. So yeah, it was by far the hardest thing I've ever done. I'm surprised because I wasn't really scared going in. I knew it was something that I had to do, so even when I got pregnant, the thought of giving birth never scared me. Before I got pregnant, it did, but once I got pregnant, it didn't scare me, because it was like, you have to do it. There's no getting out of it. You can't not do it. You can't, you know, procrastinate on giving birth. But all in all, it went really pretty well. I can't imagine it going much smoother unless, you know, the pushing part was less, but my mom said an hour and a half pushing is really not that bad. Oh yeah, she was born 7:57 p.m. So like an hour and a half of pushing. And yeah, it was intense. It was crazy. Paul watched the whole thing. He knew he was going to be in the delivery room, but I don't think thought he was going to watch. But at one point, my nurse, you know, was like, oh, Dad, come over here. You could see the hair. And after that, then he watched the whole thing. Him and Kristen, I remember while I was pushing, they said that the head would like come out and then go back in, come out and go back in. And I could hear them sometimes just be like, oh, and oh my God, and whoa. And I wanted to punch them. I was like, stop wooing at my vagina. Because it was like so distracting. It's like, I need focus on me. And you guys are like getting all like watching my, I don't know. But they both said it was the most amazing thing they've ever seen. I would not be able to watch. You know, sometimes they have mirrors that you could watch yourself giving birth. No. I don't want to, no. But the induction aspect, I'm actually really glad that that's the route I went, because I'm a big baby with pain, and other than the actual birth part, I really didn't feel any contractions. I felt a little bit crampy, but it was never any like real contractions. So I was very happy with that aspect for sure, because the next day I was breastfeeding and it brought on a contraction, because your uterus has to go back to its original shape, and it brought on a contraction, and the afterwards contraction was 25 times more painful than anything contraction wise I felt while giving birth. So that was not fun, but yeah, I mean, like I said, I think it went as well as it could have. There were no complications. The only time that I really got scared was just me and Paul were in the room and we had all the lights on and we were trying to get some rest, and they had the monitor with Violet's, you know, keeping track of Violet's heartbeat, and there was one point where it dropped to like a low. It was like do 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 do, and then it went back up. And then I was like, Paul, did you hear that? And he's like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. And then the nurses came in and they're like, oh, it's normal. Sometimes that happens, this. And that was the only moment that kind of scared me. But other than that, I think it went as well as it could have. And like I said, I think that for me personally, I think that the induction process went as well as it could have. And I'm honestly glad that that's what I decided to do. Okay, I think that I covered all aspects. If you have any more questions, leave a comment and I will get back to as many of you as I can, and I'll see you later.